Harry's Wife, Part 102.38. Careful who you cozy up to. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, continuing to extend your knowledge about narcissism. We now turn to a useful example of Harry's wife's mid-range narcissism in action, demonstrating the way that it goes for short-term gain without consideration of medium or long-term consequence, a hallmark of mid-range narcissists. As always, I leave it for you to determine the veracity of the material in the news articles. I'm providing you with the analysis. Mail Online, with a story from Mark Huckham and Luke Barr, tells us, Fat Cat salary probe into mother and daughter, who run youth charity, that Harry's wife champions, after duo were paid almost £2 million in less than 5 years. A criticism that's often levelled at charities is that the people at the top, the CEOs, etc., make vast sums of money, therefore the administrative costs of the charity take away from the delivery of the help that's supposedly the purpose for which people have donated. Now, of course, a charity needs to be organised, and of course, for it to be effective, you invariably need capable people, and those capable people want to be paid. Nevertheless, there is a line that is invariably crossed between what would be regarded as fair remuneration in the charitable sector and what passes as greed. It's also the case that many people who find themselves in positions of trust, find themselves in positions where they're perhaps seeking the mandate of the people, where they hold themselves out as being, in effect, holier than thou, of good character, of clean hands, find themselves caught out as they have an affiliation with some less than savoury individuals. Sometimes this occurs where, in all fairness, the individual really had to go some to find out that the ultimate source of funds that might have come their way came from an inappropriate source, and it wasn't immediately apparent. In other instances, some simple fact-checking ought to have revealed that the organisation that the famous person has become involved with is not really acting with bona fides, or at least there's questionable motives associated with the organisation that somebody exhibiting prudence would be better steering clear of. If you're going to put yourself in the public arena as a politician that can be trusted, if ever there was an oxymoron, or as generally somebody who holds themselves out as being of good character and clean hands, you need to take these steps. For Harry's wife, of course, she has a staff. She has a number of people linked, of course, to PR agencies, publicists, and the staff that run her foundation, who could look into the organisations that she is involved with, that want to partner with Archwell, that want her to speak at events, that want her to appear on their behalf, that want to enter into collaborations. She holds herself out as being this kind, empathic individual who is a victim of much hatred around the world. And in order to do that, then one has to demonstrate that one is of good character, that one is of those clean hands, and that means adopting a prudent approach to those that you metaphorically get into bed with. Once again, however, it would appear that Harry's wife has come unstuck in that regard, failing to have due consideration to what an organisation that she has been championing actually does. The fact is that this company, this charity, is being probed, and there is a suggestion that those at the top have been engaging in excessive remuneration. Surely, this is something that Harry's wife would have been able to work out. One doesn't expect her to necessarily do the work, but somebody within her many organisations would look at this outfit and say, we've had a look at them, we've looked at the accounts, we've looked at what they do, we've done a sweep on all of their activities to make a determination as to whether this is an organisation that you should continue to be involved with. That is common sense. That is prudent. But of course, with Harry's wife, she's all about the short-term gain, and her narcissism doesn't give a rat's ass about the actual consequences. It wants to assert control now. It wants to draw fuel now. It wants those character traits and residual benefits now. Like Veruca Salt, she wants them now. And the narcissism operates that way for lesser and mid-range narcissists. Accordingly, where it's able to assert control by having her cozy up to one young world, it does so. Where that enables her to draw fuel from the audiences that she speaks to at the summits involving one young world and the subsequent press coverage thereafter, she goes for it. Where it allows her to acquire character traits from those that she speaks to at these summits, engaging in the gender equality roundtables, she goes for it. And of course, there is the possibility of payment for the appearances, and of course the management of the facade by being involved with an organisation which on the face of it appears to be doing good things. And she wants those residual benefits now. Therefore, the narcissism basically says, it's a good idea to be involved in this organisation, to give speeches in relation to this organisation, to be associated with this organisation, because we get those prime aims. The narcissism isn't saying to her, wait a moment, do some due diligence, do some fact-finding, do some fact-checking. Make sure that this is not an organisation that might embarrass you in some way, or cause you even greater problems by having an association with them. No. The arrogance by which she operates, the sense of entitlement and the absence of accountability means that those are not concerns that she would engage in. Indeed, it's often the case with some narcissists that a prudent member of their staff actually identifies the problems and says to them, I don't think it would be a good idea for you to be associated with Handy Spank Neck's charity. They've got questionable donors from a dodgy part of the world. However, the narcissist knows best. And certain narcissists would poo-poo. You're worrying about nothing. I'll handle that should it arise, kicking the can down the road. And of course, it invariably comes back to bite them on the bottom. So in some instances, the narcissist doesn't even ensure that there is any vetting or due diligence in the first place. And in other instances, it's actually undertaken, but they ignore it because their narcissism isn't concerned about what's happening tomorrow or the week after that or in 2 years' time. It's all about the now. What does this article tell us then? A charity championed by the Duchess of Sussex is facing an investigation after it emerged the mother and daughter at its helm were paid almost £2 million in less than 5 years. In a dramatic move, the Charity Commission launched the probe into one young world just days after portraits of Harry's wife and the Duke of Sussex, taken at the charity's annual summit in Manchester in September, were published. One Young World describes itself as a global forum for young leaders and has enjoyed a soaring public profile thanks to the Duchess, who became one of its counsellors in 2014. Harry's wife told delegates in Manchester she was thrilled Harry was able to join her to witness firsthand my respect for this organisation. But the Mail on Sunday can reveal that the regulator has intervened among concerns at the eye-watering pay and benefits package handed to senior bosses at the charity. There is no suggestion that Harry's wife and Harry, who are among a string of celebrity backers of the charity, including Richard Branson, Bob Geldof and Emma Watson, knew of the pay levels. One Young World's chief executive, Kate Robertson, was awarded a £440,000 pay package for the 18 months to June 2021, despite the pandemic interrupting its summits, the biggest source of its revenue. Her daughter, Ella McKay, 30, one of the charity's two managing directors, enjoyed a £194,543 pay and benefits package for the same period. Following questions from this newspaper, the Charity Commission this weekend announced that it had opened a regulatory compliance case to examine concerns about remuneration at One Young World. In a statement, a spokesman said, all charities should be able to look donors and volunteers in the eye and say how their decisions about pay impact on the cause they pursue or the people they help. The Commission said the opening of a compliance case is not a finding of wrongdoing, but it is the first step it can take in examining potential wrongdoing. A spokesman for One Young World said it was working with the Commission to answer any questions they may have. Well, that's how it works when the Charity Commission gets involved, adding, we are confident that there has been absolutely no wrongdoing. Well, that's all right then. Seeing as you said it, that must be the case. Founded in 2009 by top advertising executives Mrs. Robertson and David Jones, One Young World says it has created a network of more than 13,700 young leaders. Its annual summits have attracted a host of celebrities. At this year's 4-day summit, Harry's wife gave a speech during the 2-hour-long opening ceremony in Manchester's Bridgewater Hall after flying to the United Kingdom. Attendance at One Young World summits does not come cheap. Delegates are charged £3,150 for a pass that includes lunch and dinner. A pass that also includes accommodation costs £4,210. Those fees, and separate fees for exhibition space, are the charity's main sources of funding. But revenue plunged after a summit due to be held in Munich was delayed until July 2021 by the pandemic. The charity's accounts show that despite it not holding a summit between 2020 and 2021, its top 5 bosses, including Mrs. Robertson and Mrs. McKay, were awarded almost $1.4 million in pay and benefits. Now, colour me cynical, but it strikes me that this organisation is all about finding, basically, gullible young people and saying to them, give us several £1,000s and you can turn up at a summit where someone wearing red will come and talk absolute adenine shite at you for 30 minutes or so. But you can stick this on your CV and be called a young leader. And that these individuals are, in effect, being brainwashed by an organisation which is actually not really doing anything at all. The article continues by explaining the charity said 84% of the total pay and benefits were deferred until the next accounting period, but confirmed executives will still receive the full amount. It said that the salaries of its leadership team have been independently audited and approved by its trustees. Both Kate Robertson and Ella McKay's salaries are set by the board independently of any involvement of Mrs. Robertson, it added. Well, take it from me, it's invariably the case, but not always, that in certain organisations the trustees are quite simply there to rubber stamp the will of the executives. There's more about this, however, that comes from The Times in an article that's from Ben Ellery, which tells us, Harry's wife spoke at Ego-Stroking Summit. A speaker at a charity summit attended by the Duchess of Sussex claimed it was ego-stroking and self-indulgent networking disguised as social action. One Young World attracted bland corporate delegates who are obviously there simply to check a box on a corporate social responsibility checklist, according to the speaker. Alex Polkey, who wrote a blog post reflecting on the 2014 summit in Dublin in which he spoke before 1,200 people, said the most uneasy moment was a hastily organised march to raise awareness of Ebola. The Duchess, who also spoke at the 2014 event, gave a talk at the One Young World conference in Manchester last month, 3 days before the Queen's death. It then explains that the charity is being investigated. Polkey, who was a university student when he was invited to give a talk on Northern Ireland, wrote, "Much of the weekend was intended to inspire, and if I'm honest, this engendered a little ego-stroking. At times, we were being told we were remarkable. And although many that I met there were remarkable, many more were just remarkably privileged. It serves well to remember that the delegate fee was approximately £2,500. This was like a light to a moth for corporate social responsibility whitewashing." He said a speech given by Bob Geldof was little more than a collection of platitudes. Sounds fairly similar to that which Harry's wife gives. As you know, she engages in fridge magnet platitudes. Polkey added, there was endless discussion of startups and the sharing of moving experiences, but precious little discussion of major issues that I would have thought pertinent at a summit of the world's young leaders. If we, the powerful, privileged and globally mobile, truly care about those we claim to help, we must eschew the comfort of self-indulgent networking disguised as social action. I think I saw a little too much of that in Dublin. A few of the comments in relation to the Times article. Good idea at the time states, a speaker at a charity summit attended by the Duchess of Sussex claimed it was ego-stroking and self-indulgent networking disguised as social action. No shits, Sherlock. Savage. I did wonder what this charity actually did. This article sums it up perfectly. Sir Gutsy. No surprises there. Braces and cufflinks. Let's go to the opening of an envelope. The dullness of selfies attended another diary-filling non-event. ZZZZZZZZZ. Stephen Forster. She's certainly all ego. Jan Williams. We need to expose these chasnesses where big money flows in. The true aims of the organisation come way second to the careers and bank balances of the topsters. This one, Mermaids, Stonewall, Amnesty, Ugly Mugs, and surely many more. SQ99EE. It seems these people are to be hung out to dry in yet another sensational trial by media. Why don't we wait to see the outcome of the formal investigation before the newspapers ruin these women's lives? Show me. Writes Rory McIlroy. Boris Becker, Mary Robertson and Kofi Annan were among the guest speakers for the 2014 confab. Harry's wife, as I recall, was on a panel. Every year since 2010, former and serving politicians, royalty, the Crown Prince and Princess of Norway are ambassadors, and the great and good attend One Young World conferences. Every year, UK cities vie with others to host them, and British personalities line up to take part. But suddenly, Kate and Emily Robertson, why not David Jones, are under scrutiny, and the Time blames Harry's wife. M. Scott responds to that, saying, could it be her apparent touch of toxicity? Mixed observations there. What about those in the Daily Mail article? What did they have to say about what they've been reading? RN Retired states, before donating to a charity, ask them what percentage actually gets to the people in need, typically a few pence of every pound collected. Bon Voyage, a charity is a great excuse to pay oneself an eye-watering salary. Leslie Kay, nothing new here in the world of charities. Daily Reel, it's shocking how much so-called charities pay top staff, just shocking. Creep, charities these days is big business in disguise. Sparky56789, typical charity then, this is why I no longer give to any charity. Dar88, so they had a higher salary than the Prime Minister. MetX, I never give to charity for this reason. And similar comments, it doesn't look particularly good. Now, as stated, of course, Harry's wife is not involved in any wrongdoing herself, but it is the association, and she has very much associated herself with this particular charity which finds itself under investigation. Now, it might be that there's ultimately no finding of wrongdoing. It's important to bear that in mind. But the fact is, there is a suggestion of a problem. And as we heard in relation to the Ving initiative that was reported on yesterday, there's very much this instance of Harry's wife bandwagoning, driven by her mid-range narcissism, without any due cause or consideration for what's really, truly going on. And that's because she simply doesn't actually care. She thinks that she does. Her narcissism causes her to believe that she cares about these causes, but it's actually all about what it can do for her in terms of making her look good, the management of the facade, the extension of control, and the drawing of fuel. Many people have questioned with regard to Ving, what's the point of inviting teenagers to then send $1,000 to somebody else? And that have remarked that, again, similarly to the conduct of the One Young World Summits, is it some form of brainwashing that's taken place to try and get young people on side at an early juncture, to have them thinking in a particular way, and to secure perhaps their votes? That, of course, remains to be seen. But here, this is an excellent example of the way that Harry's wife's narcissism causes her to align to certain causes without actually thinking about the consequences. We've seen this in similar instances in relation to the blood diamond earrings that she wore, not once, but twice, without any concern for the provenance of those diamonds, notwithstanding the fact that concerns had been raised. The simple fact is, her narcissism dictates the behaviour in the now, and what comes next will always be deflected, denied, shunted elsewhere, because that's the way that her narcissism works. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.